Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 origin continent based on novel. So let's start. As the highest level life form in the infinite primordial space, Luo Feng's thought process speed far exceeds that of the past. With sufficient accumulation in destruction and life perception, his heart and Tao aligned, and in just one day, he created the first version of the primordial blade path. My primordial blade path takes the great destruction system as its core, pursuing ultimate power. He needs to perfectly combine the primordial life and death Tao with the primordial blade path. Hence, he must consider the strongest advantage of the primordial life and death Tao, infinite energy, to make the strong stronger, which is the best combination. With infinite energy, combined with extreme power, it can threaten those ancestors with tenacious life force. Let's give it a try. Luo Feng sat cross-legged on an island deep within the blood crane territory. With a casual wave of his hand, his palm became like a blade, and a terrifying blade light erupted, tearing through endless time and space, splitting the vast blood sea in two. This first version of the primordial blade path has too many flaws. Luo Feng frowned, it's only good at close-range energy locking. If the distance is far, it lacks the assurance of locking on. Reaching the level of a lord or ancestor, a single movement technique can cover quite a distance. It requires ensuring absolute locking within a certain range to be a sufficient threat to the enemy. Let's try the power of the origin destruction. Luo Feng waved his hand, and countless brilliant stars flew out. A total of 360 million origin stars floated in the air, forming a formation exuding endless destruction aura, which is a weakened version of the origin great destruction. The control is more perfect now, and it can accurately target the locked area. Luo Feng nodded slightly. Boom. Watching the incredibly splendid destruction scene, the glow reflected on Luo Feng's face made it much brighter. He frowned slightly. This weakened version of origin great destruction only improves power by 50%. He didn't need to try to know that the more challenging 1.8 billion origin stars version wouldn't enhance the power much either. This version has too many flaws. Luo Feng shook his head lightly. This is far from the primordial blade path he envisioned. Luo Feng sat cross-legged on the island deep within blood crane territory, deducing one version of the primordial blade path after another. His insight, comprehension, and thinking abilities were too terrifying, and unconsciously, he had already created 10,938,103,329 versions of the primordial blade path without feeling tired. Back then, Luo Feng tried creating the primordial life and death Tao more than 30 million times before breaking out of the cage, feeling like he had exhausted all possibilities, and his soul was almost empty. Now he easily surpassed 100 billion times. I've tried every possibility. Luo Feng was very calm. The creation of 100 billion times consumed him less than 30 eras. Among them, 7 versions are the most outstanding. But there's still a bit left to succeed. Only by succeeding can the Tao be eternal and indestructible, becoming part of a lord's life. The blade path is ultimately used for killing enemies. Let's sharpen the blade further in actual combat. Luo Feng thought, his aura rapidly weakened, while the aura of Luo Feng's avatar, closed in the 19th layer of the Abyss of Destruction, rapidly increased. The 19th layer of the Abyss of Destruction. This avatar of Luo Feng reached peak state before opening his eyes. Elder brother Yuan. Luo Feng walked out of the secluded cave mansion, speaking through transmitted sound. I'm ready to head to the next layer. Yuan's avatar condensed and appeared nearby. Preparing to break through layer by layer. Yuan laughed. Yes. Luo Feng nodded. First, I'll try challenging all opponents. Relying on the primordial life and death Tao and the highest level of destruction power breaking power, Luo Feng was confident in battling Shoju. With the more perfected 7 versions of the primordial blade path, Luo Feng was even more confident. These opponents are the whetstones for his blade. Then I'll watch with anticipation. Yuan seemed expectant. Luo Feng nodded, taking a step through layers of time and space, heading to the deeper 20th layer destruction world. Yuan watched him leave. According to Starlight's observations, Luo Feng is perfecting his second primordial level Dao. Yuan observed, once he breaks through, our cultivator camp's strength can be greatly enhanced. Luo Feng also regards the countless source worlds outside the territory as his kin. Yuan highly appreciated the behavior Luo Feng displayed over the past 500 eras. Intercepting and devouring world-level primordial life forms from the source worlds represented Luo Feng's acknowledgement of the countless source worlds outside the territory. As the first lord of the cultivator camp, the entire cultivator camp inherently had no territory. It was with the rise of one lord after another that the territory continuously expanded until reaching the current 3,600 world groups. In Yuan's eyes, the territory will expand. All creatures of the source worlds are within the range of the recognized cultivator tribe. I will expand the territory in the future, and Luo Feng should agree. Yuan thought, then dispersed his avatar, continuing to focus on cultivation, carefully perfecting his origin system of the primordial rules operation path. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The 20th layer of the abyss of destruction, the cold wind howled, sweeping everywhere. Luo Feng descended onto the vast icy ground, seeing the figure looming in the distance like an ice mountain, Ice Peak Ancestor. The Ice Peak Ancestor slowly opened his eyes, standing as if integrated with the entire destruction world. Ice Peak Ancestor, Luo Feng spoke. You've finally come, Ice Peak Ancestor smiled and said, how do you need me to cooperate with you? Based on Ice Peak Ancestor's research, cooperation can maintain face. If not, Luo Feng might have to use force, which would be even more embarrassing. With the other party being so friendly, Luo Feng couldn't be too excessive. I kindly ask the Ice Peak Ancestor to help and join all world envoys to deal with me. Luo Feng requested. Ha ha ha, if I join hands with all the envoys, it's not so easy to handle. Ice Peak Ancestor laughed heartily, be careful. Then the Ice Peak Ancestor extended his hand. As his palm stretched out, it rapidly enlarged, the surface of the palm spreading endless cold, causing the hand to continuously extend and expand. Meanwhile, in the endless cold, 120 black figures condensed. Here it comes. After the Ice Peak Ancestor enlarged his palm, it was as big as half the world. Moreover, that gigantic palm seemed to be one with the entire ice land, exerting an oppressive power that surprised Luo Feng. Ice Peak Ancestor, you can indeed rival the elder brother Yuan. Luo Feng marveled in his heart. Unlike Yuan's formation, mysterious and unparalleled, Ice Peak Ancestor, who can be called a more perfect Wulan, possesses a body comparable to Wulan's powerful body. And his attack methods are even stronger. Bang tilde 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 tilde. The incredibly large palm merged with the earth, where 120 twisting black shadows surrounded Luo Feng. Ice Peak Ancestor was slightly surprised, he could feel the pain in his palm. Luo Feng remained standing there, unmoved. He forcefully withstood the striking of the gigantic palm, and the encirclement, by 120 world envoys. Because in the Mountain of Destruction, he had seen all the mysteries of the 20 levels of destructive power, now just slightly sensing the world envoy's siege, he could see through it all. This body of Luo Feng is like a blade. Ice Peak Ancestor realized that his palm seemed to have struck a knife's edge, already showing injuries. Within Luo Feng, 1 billion, 800 million origin energy circulated, making him appear as a terrifying blade. Suddenly, Luo Feng moved. A dazzling and brilliant blade light forcefully pierced through the Ice Peak Ancestor's palm, creating a gap in the massive icy palm, and the blade light flew out along the gap, dazzling and brilliant as it cut onto the Ice Peak Ancestor's chest, leaving cracks on his chest surface. But these cracks were insignificant to Ice Peak Ancestor. The ice cracks on his body surface rapidly healed, with virtually no energy loss. Such a terrifying body. Luo Feng's mind stirred. The dazzling brilliant blade light turned silently, already disappeared without a trace. The blade light was hidden in the dark. Invisible, undetectable, it kills all vitality. Hiss 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 tilde tilde tilde. The ice on the Ice Peak Ancestor's body surface turned into flying ash, led into annihilation. Clearly, no blade light was detected, yet the vast body of Ice Peak Ancestor was losing some of its power and vitality. Without vitality, naturally, it leads to extinction. Previously, relying only on the primordial life and death Tao, Luo Feng's life-cutting technique had relatively low impact on the ancestors, and he himself didn't prioritize it enough. But when combined with the destructive killing intent, it produced a remarkable effect against Ice Peak Ancestor. This invisible knife deals greater damage to me. Ice Peak Ancestor was also slightly surprised. A figure gathered in the distance, precisely Luo Feng's figure. Luo Feng stood there, somewhat puzzled. The combination of two Daos indeed greatly enhances the life-cutting effect. All life needs vitality. Without vitality, it means death. Not targeting matter, nor some special energy, just vitality. It makes no noise killing the enemy, but it's very effective. The encounter between Luo Feng and Ice Peak Ancestor made him realize. The combination of two primordial Daos elevated the power of life-cutting. This seemingly insignificant, noiseless technique has great potential. Origin Great Destruction pursues the utmost power to destroy an enemy with extreme power. Life-cutting, however, is very suitable for my other path. I need to improve this path properly. My attention to it has been inadequate. Luo Feng stood there. Various plans to improve it quickly emerged in his mind. It's difficult to fully understand the strengths and weaknesses of the Tao while secluded in enlightenment. Latest content published on novelfire.net. But during combat, it becomes clearer. Lord Luo Feng, do you want to continue? Ice Peak Ancestor remained cordial. No need. I'm preparing to move to the next level, Luo Feng said with a smile. Move to the next level. Ice Peak Ancestor was astonished. According to Luo Feng's previous habits, he would always let the world envoy siege for 1 or 2 eras. It's too fast now. Luo Feng took a step, and had already gone deeper into the destruction world. The skirmish between Luo Feng and Ice Peak Ancestor, though brief, also attracted the attention of ancient beings in the endless primordial space. From this battle, they could see that the proud Ice Peak Ancestor had no advantage in the encounter with Luo Feng, even somewhat falling behind. Lord Luo Feng's strength, after all, is comparable to Shoju. Ice Peak Ancestor being unable to match is normal. This confrontation was within everyone's expectation. If Ice Peak Ancestor won, that would surprise everyone. In the 21st layer of the Abyss of Destruction, Infinite Snake Ancestor was also watching. So fast it came. Infinite Snake Ancestor watched the silhouette of the black-haired man descending into this layer of destruction world. A bit confused, it came too quickly. It originally thought Luo Feng would stay on the 20th layer for 1 or 2 eras. Luo Feng looked at the Infinite Snake Ancestor, full of battle intent. Compared to the defensively robust and simple attacks of Ice Peak Ancestor, Luo Feng was more interested in Infinite Snake Ancestor. Infinite Snake Ancestor, capable of changing shape and space, mysterious and intriguing, was more suitable for testing various blade techniques. Hitting Ice Peak Ancestor was as it should be. Because Ice Peak Ancestor doesn't dodge. To strike Infinite Snake Ancestor, that proves the prowess of the blade technique. Infinite Snake Ancestor, please give it your all. Luo Feng looked at it. I cooperate with you. Infinite Snake Ancestor sneered. It could see that Luo Feng was cultivating. As an adversary and the head of the 9 emperors of the innate primordial camp, it had its pride and could not cooperate with Luo Feng in cultivation. Luo Feng gently shook his head. Then I'll have to force it. The Infinite Snake Ancestor was confident that, with the support of the infinite world, it could achieve complete void transformation. In an absolute void state, no material energy could harm it in the slightest. Of course, in that state, it couldn't harm the enemy either. This absolute void state is a unique ability of the mysterious land of the infinite world. With this ability, the Infinite Snake Ancestor was fearless in the face of Luo Feng. Boom. Boom. Neither the Infinite Snake Ancestor nor Luo Feng held back, both went all out right from the start. This layer of Destroyer World instantly turned into a void maze, with the Infinite Snake Ancestor and the entire void maze as one, moving stealthily, disappearing at will, appearing at will, attacking Luo Feng crazily. This battle attracted more attention in the entire infinite primordial space. Everyone knows that the Cultivator Camp and the Innate Primordial Camp are mortal enemies and have fought for too long. Land of Origin. Yuan, Jin, Wulan, Ming Huang, Nai Jiyu, Starlight, Mo Man, the 7 lords were also watching the battle. They were very concerned about their companion Luo Feng's growth. With Luo Feng's speed of breaking laws with force, they predicted, it wouldn't be long before Luo Feng should grasp the 2nd primordial level Dao. They all looked forward to that moment. Although Luo Feng's blade technique is fierce and violent, the Infinite Snake Ancestor is too elusive. Luo Feng's techniques can't touch it. Ming Huang frowned and watched. Luo Feng has unleashed over 100 blades, each one terrifying, yet none can touch the Infinite Snake Ancestor. Wulan also shook his head lightly. Throughout the infinite primordial space, in terms of void mastery, the Infinite Great Serpent is second only to Starlight. The Starlight Lord nodded in acknowledgement. The Infinite Snake Ancestor hasn't even exhibited the Absolute Void ability yet. With Void Control alone, it's avoiding all of Luo Feng's attacks. Under Void Control, wherever Luo Feng's blade light fell, it would veer off too far. Yuan and the others' eyes brightened. Luo Feng's blade technique changed, its power greatly reduced, but each blade flew out with a sort of spirituality, swiftly carving bizarre arcs, piercing through layers of space-time barriers, hitting the Infinite Snake Ancestor hidden within the void maze. Each blade must hit. There was nowhere to hide. No matter how formidable the void mastery of the Infinite Snake Ancestor was, it couldn't escape. Absolute hit. Yuan laughed. Ming Huang, Jin, and Mo Man all nodded, as all 3 possessed the ability of absolute hit. Luo Feng is still relatively unskilled. To maintain absolute hit, the power of each blade cannot be too strong. Jin laughed. He should learn from me. Luo Feng's each blade isn't considered powerful, but he strikes swiftly. Mo Man exclaimed. Indeed. Dense and intertwined blade lights all flew with spirituality, dividing into several streams, ultimately piercing through space-time barriers, landing on the body of the Infinite Snake Ancestor. The series of attack from the massive amount of blade lights caused the Infinite Snake Ancestor's body to deplete rapidly, needing the energy supply from this layer of Destroyer World to maintain its pinnacle state. Humph! The Infinite Snake Ancestor disdained relying on the Destroyer World energy supply. After all, in normal external environments, it's impossible to receive such abundant energy supply. It began to exhibit absolute void transformation. When the river-like abundance of blade lights from Luo Feng fell on the infinite snake ancestor, it completely voided, receiving not the slightest damage. Hit doesn't mean you can harm the opponent. Yuan watched. Just like the initial ancestor allowing the enemy to attack, the enemy could hit, but couldn't threaten the initial ancestor in the least. The absolute void of the infinite ancestor, although not as impeccable as the initial ancestor, still ranked among the foremost in difficulty. Nothing can be done. Ming Huang shook his head. All of Luo Feng's techniques can't threaten the infinite snake ancestor. Nai Jiyu watched. At this moment, Luo Feng wielded his blade with ferocity, roaring through the destroyer world. He even deployed a blade formation, constituted of 15 terrifying blade lights, obliterating every corner of the destroyer world. Yet the absolute void infinite snake ancestor effortlessly regarded everything, occasionally seizing moments to attack stealthily. Absolute hit can threaten most ancestors, but with some ancestors, hitting them is useless. Luo Feng tested his techniques on the infinite snake ancestor, gradually perfecting his primordial blade path during the experiment. Suddenly, Luo Feng swung his blade. This time as the blade swung, no blade light could be seen, undetectable. The absolutely void infinite snake ancestor's body, suddenly some scales silently vanished, leaving the infinite ancestor startled. The life severing is effective. Luo Feng's eyes brightened. Not severing the physical body, not severing the soul, only severing the vitality. This was something Luo Feng could do after mastering the primordial life and death Tao. Luo Feng stood still, a surge of power on the surface of his body. At once hundreds of life-severing blade lights burst forth. These blade lights were undetectable, only severing vitality. The snake scales on the surface of the infinite snake ancestor began to vanish more and more, even muscles started to vanish. How can this be? The infinite snake ancestor was somewhat panicked. Under the cover of the void maze, with absolute void added, it still got injured. This scene shocked many ancestors in their hearts. Absolutely cannot act alone, the true body appears in front of Luo Feng. Although every ancestor has tough life force and has developed numerous life-saving secret techniques, Luo Feng's current methods are clearly much more terrifying, and they dare not gamble. If the gamble is lost, then it's complete death. Because of the power of Origin Great Destruction previously, I centered the primordial blade path around the Great Destruction system, and there's no mistake in that. But I underestimated the role of life cutting. This is a technique gained after mastering the primordial life and death Tao. And when first becoming a lord, Luo Feng's means of killing were relatively weak, and the life-cutting effect hadn't truly manifested, only suitable for bullying some world-level primordial life. But with the gradually perfected primordial blade path, greatly increasing the power of the life-cutting technique, life-cutting revealed its dreadful nature. It is an unavoidable technique. Omnipresent. Absolute void. As long as it is life, there's no escape from the life-cutting technique. This technique follows the life force transmission, but limits the energy ceiling, Luo Feng pondered. Life force sensing is like a passageway. It can transmit blade light, but this passageway has a limit to the energy it can bear. This limit is determined by Luo Feng's mastery of life force, as he is already the highest in achievements related to life in the endless primordial space. This limit cannot be improved anymore. Can't improve the energy ceiling, then find ways to increase the speed of striking, research blade technique intricacies, and continue enhancing the power, Luo Feng thought. In the future, once the blade path reaches perfection, the power can certainly rise again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Luo Feng kept pondering while also trying out variations of the blade technique. Such a worthy opponent, of course, deserves to test all hypothesized techniques to the fullest. How is it possible? The absolute void infinite snake ancestor, I can't harm it either. Jin looked incredulous. How can Luo Feng harm it? In terms of destruction achievements, he was much stronger. It's the life force. The Golden Lord also had considerable accumulation in life matters and quickly realized this point. Merely following life force sensing, he can unleash blade light to cut life force. Cut life force. How is life force cut? Jin could understand life force sensing and life lock, but couldn't comprehend how cutting life force was achieved, as it far exceeded his life's accumulated knowledge. Life force can be cut. Among the three lords who escaped from the Blood Crane territory, the Blood Lord grasped the highest level life power, blood power, also very strong in life force mastery. He found it hard to understand at this moment. Through life force sensing, I can barely transmit a sliver of energy, maybe severely injure world-level primordial life. But that sliver of weak energy, for an ancestor of the same level, it's not worth mentioning at all. The deeper the understanding of life, the more one realizes the difficulty of this technique. The combination of the two Daos is beginning to show its power. Starlight watched this scene with delight. Life and destruction, the combination of these two Daos, is most adept at destroying life. Starlight had observed countless future timelines long ago. The combination of life and destruction, these two primordial level Daos, complementing each other, poses a terrifying threat. He had long believed that Luo Feng would be the most terrifying existence in future battles, the most core figure on the front battlefield of their cultivator camp. Luo Feng's blade would be the sharpest weapon in the entire cultivator camp, slashing through all obstacles. The second Dao is gradually forming, it's getting close, getting close. Starlight's eyes also saw the future. He saw it. Luo Feng's primordial blade path was on the verge of forming at any moment. All other methods cannot threaten the infinite snake ancestor. Only a trace of life force sensing can still deploy the life-cutting technique. Luo Feng repeatedly uses it. The infinite snake ancestor, with unlimited world power in support, is also desperately blocking, even striving to conceal its life force. An excellent opponent forces Luo Feng to continuously perfect the life-cutting technique. The gradual perfecting of the life-cutting technique also makes the overall primordial blade path more perfected. But gradually, the infinite snake ancestor brings no challenge anymore, its evasive abilities now completely familiar to Luo Feng. Infinite snake ancestor, release the world envoys. Luo Feng spoke. You want me to cooperate? The infinite snake ancestor sneered. Though this life-cutting can continuously dissolve its body, if external, it would force it into a sorry retreat. But in the destruction world, it can absorb energy to maintain at the pinnacle. Humph! Luo Feng snorted coldly, instantly transforming into a terrifying blade light, tearing through the sky, heading straight for the core of the destruction world source upon this level. If unwilling to cooperate, then seize this level of destruction world. Enough. The infinite snake ancestor's voice echoed, also showing a trace of helplessness. Losing to this Lord Luo Feng wasn't disgraceful. It's estimated that even Shoju might not compare to this Lord Luo Feng. Accompanied by its Sai, Luo Feng was originally rushing toward the shadow of origin. Suddenly 100 world envoys manifested in front, each burning with blue flames, collectively besieging Luo Feng. Hard words, yet practical actions. After only a few breaths exchanging blows with these world envoys, the insights gained at Mountain of Destruction were confirmed against reality, rendering these world envoys useless. This video will end here.